The script, it's an explanation for the past, is a prediction for the future, and is a blueprint for the present. The script of the organization is sometimes locked into the script of the person.
Yeah.
And I can see with many of the teams I work with that sometimes people choose their jobs and choose organizations that fits into their own script.
This is Three People in Your Head, a podcast about getting the best out of yourself and others. Co-hosted by Matt Taylor and myself, John Fleming.
In this episode, we speak to Cor Van Geffen. Cor is a provisional, teaching and supervising transactional analyst in the organisational field. He is also a professional trainer, facilitator, coach and teacher. He works with and for organisations, guiding management teams and directors of companies. Among other things, we talk about script theory and how this is applied to organisations and team development. We hope you enjoy. So Cor, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast, Three People in Your Head. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit more about your roles, responsibilities, involvement in TA, that kind of thing?
Pretty clear question. So I take 45 minutes for this.
Yeah, broad one.
Well, my name is Cor Van Geffen. I'm a professional PTSTA and I'm running a training and coaching company in Holland. I teach at the Burn and I teach in Holland at Nijrode University. It's a very business university and we do also teach TA over there. And besides that, you talked a lot about roles. I'm a teacher in NLP. I love to do NLP and I do family constellations. And I earn my money really by guiding management teams and teams of directors of companies.
Wow. That's a broad swathe of roles. Okay.
Oh, and I forgot one. I'm also a yoga teacher. So I teach once a week. I do evening yoga teaching and I really love it.
So you do a lot of teaching.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And so tell us a bit more about how you came across TA, where that first occurred and why it is that you got involved in the world of transactional analysis.
Yeah, great question. I was with my colleague Pia Umans. He runs a company in Leiden and we were guiding a team of teachers and there was a lot going on in this team. At one point she drew the drama triangle and she explained it and we did some exercise with the drama triangle and I was really astonished. I said, wow, what the fuck is this? I want to know more about it. And then I got to one-on-one and there it happened. I wanted to know more and more and more. So I did some training and then I learned about the CTA and then I said, okay, I want to do this also. So it was a great start. Drama triangle and there we go.
Great piece of theory. That one hooks a lot of people.
Yeah.
And when was that?
Wow. I think about 15 years ago.
So you've been in the world of TA for a long time.
Yes.
How do you involve TA with all the other stuff that you do?
For me, it's very logical to combine TA with NLP and family constellations. They're all three at my mind the whole day.
Yeah.
And for some of my colleagues, I'm a very weird person because I can switch from TA to NLP to family constellations or I can mix them.
Right.
And TA is for me, it gives explanations why family constellation works and why it works like it works.
Yeah.
And NLP also. Sometimes NLP exercises give a lot of insights on something like script.
Right. Okay. Can you tell us a bit more about the kind of things that you're passionate about in TA, your favorite pieces of theory, what's most important with you and your work?
Great question. I have to choose. So let's start with script. I love really the part of script because I can use it when I coach, give therapy to people. But I really love the work of Rosa Krauts on organizational script.
Yeah.
And so she is doing the life positions. She combined the life positions with main themes in organizations like people, time, money, places. So she combines them and says, okay, this is what an organization is doing. And then you come to, do you know the interlocking script? the definition of interlocking script?
No.
So there's a great concept where I forgot his name, but he says that the script of the organization is sometimes locked into the script of the person.
Yeah.
And I can see with many of the teams I work with that sometimes people choose their jobs and choose organizations that fits into their own script.
Right.
And that stimulates their own scripts and keep it apart, keep it living. So it's really interlocking.
So with that, I'm just going to ask you a question now. If we've got members of the public listening and they're kind of new to TA, how would you define script? As simple as possible. I know this is a bit of a test of you for your teacher role now.
Yeah, thank you. I think Trudy Newton said it's an explanation for the past, is a prediction for the future, and is a blueprint for the present.
Brilliant.
And I really love that definition because it's not only about the blueprint of our past. No, you have some tools to work with in the present to create another future.
Okay. And so you're really interested in the way that an individual's script works or interlocks with an organization's script and why people choose.
Or the team script.
Okay. So tell us more about your interest in teams then, because this is something that I'm just starting to learn about myself in the world of TA, but I'm pretty new to it. So tell us more how you think TA fits in terms of team building, team effectiveness, that kind of thing. What's it got to say?
Yeah, I can say a lot about it. Where should I start? Mostly I start working in organizations after I got my NLP practitioner exam.
Yeah.
And I want to tell everybody how great NLP was. And it came very clear to me that the world wasn't waiting for NLP.
Okay, right.
It's very shocking also. And then I got asked from a friend of mine, and he said, I have a management team and we're doing some stuff. Can you come and talk over with us? All right. And that was the start of working with teams. So we were there with 3 guys, and I usually had the role of observer. And I saw some strange things happening. So he's saying this, but why he's reacting like this?
Yeah.
And they're not talking about the subject, but there's a lot of going on. What the fuck is going on in this team? So it really interests me. And years later, I found out a little bit of Bion. And Bion talks about the assumptions, the basic assumptions. And he talks about the task group. And I really noticed that most teams aren't working on the task.
Right.
They're just working on their basic assumptions to keep a safe feeling.
So they're not actually doing the work that the team is there to do.
Yes. And I like to work with the concept of time structuring from Byrne in a team, because they find it very astonishing to find out that most of the time they're working on rituals and time passing instead of activities.
Right.
And they're very scared of intimacy.
What is it about TA that's so helpful in these kind of organizations and teams and working together?
What I really like about TA, you can explain it to everybody, no matter what.
Yeah.
And you can draw it within a few seconds, and it's clear for everybody. So it works so very good.
Yeah.
So I don't have to do a teaching for over an hour on the drama triangle.
Yeah.
Just within 5 minutes, it's clear. And mostly everybody in the team says, oh, this is what we're doing. And you're the bypasser of the bystander.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's true. It's so accessible. Yeah,
it's very accessible.
Great. Okay.
Or I was wondering if you would expand on organizational and team script a little bit. I'd be interested to know how you understand those things to be formed, because you gave an explanation to what script was earlier about it being, an explanation from the past, and I understood that to be about the individual script.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if you could say a little bit more about what's organizational script. Like, is organizational script something from the founder, from the CEO? How does that come about? And then maybe a little bit more about team script, because these are new concepts for me. I haven't heard it being described that way before. I'd love to know more about.
Yeah, great question, John. Thank you. In Holland, we have a TA specialist called Piet Wijsveld, and he wrote a lot about secrets of organizations, and he really explains that the founder of the organization, the script of the founder, fits the script of the organization.
Okay.
We can see that, for example, with Apple is, I think, a really great example. The script of Jobs is drowned into Apple all over the place. Working hard, be creative, be ruthless, not look good at people. So all these stuffs are combined with Apple still at the same time.
Yeah.
And later on, each director influenced the script of the organization. But the basic is still on the founder. And I used to talk it with school directors. And one of these guys said, well, we have a founder, but he didn't work at the organization at all. But he founded the school. And then we investigated. And then he was very astonished of what to do. What is this about? Because the founder, he believed in God a lot, and he was very strict on all the religious rules.
Yeah.
And then they found out the school was not religious, but the school was one piece of rules.
Really?
All over the time. On everything.
That was his influence over, wasn't the religion, but the strict following of rules.
Yes.
Fascinating. So one of the things I wanted to ask you, because we're talking about organizations and teams and that kind of thing, what would you say is the difference between these terms, organizations, groups, teams? Do they have distinctions?
That's a very good question. That's a really good question. I see a lot of teams where people say, we aren't a team. We're just a group of people with one manager.
Right.
And they're right, because they don't have to work together. They have all different kinds of territories. They mostly work for other people in the organizations. And their manager is only their HR manager. So they're really a group and not a team. And for me, I really love the definition of a team is when they codependent to each other.
Yeah.
And they have a clear goal for all people in the team.
Okay. So it'd be much more like a sports team.
Yeah.
So, right. Okay. And so back to the question about script and organizational script. What about when you have a number of different founders? So Apple would be an interesting one because there's Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak.
Yeah.
But you only spoke about Steve Jobs, which obviously he ended up being the name, didn't he, for Apple?
Yeah.
Does that feed into it as well?
I don't know if you have seen the movie Jobs.
Yeah.
The one with Ashton Kutcher.
Yeah.
And there's a very great scene when Jobs comes to Wozniak at his home, and there's a lot of stuff around and on the table, and Jobs says, what's this? There's nothing. And then he turns on some TV, and there are figures and numbers rolling, and Jobs is very interesting, and he says, there's nothing. How do you call it? I call it the operating system. And then they move from their house into the garage, and then Jobs says, this is great. This must the world know. And the other guy says, but nobody wants to buy a computer.
Really?
And Jobs says, everybody will buy a computer. And that's for me, the visionary thing of Jobs makes him the owner and makes him the determination of the script of Apple.
Gotcha. Right, because he's the guy who held the vision, drove the vision forward. So he's
make the company. Wozniak would have never started Apple.
Yeah.
He would still be in his garage finding out things for himself.
Yeah, he truly loved the programming side, didn't he? And the technological side. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. And so when you talk about script and your definition, Trudy Newton's definition, does that definition fit exactly as well for the script of an organization?
Yeah, mostly. But I think in an organization, the influences of the context of the organization, I think is much greater than for an individual. And most bigger companies, they also influence each other. So the different departments have also their own script. So you have the organization script and you have team scripts.
Right. Okay.
I have a great example. It's very sad also. We were asked for a great department, a government department in Holland, and he says, we have a team and this team is not functioning well. And you have to learn them to work together. You have to learn them to communicate with other departments.
Yeah.
And most of the guys came in and they said like this,
Arms folded.
shoulders high, arms folded, and
Defensive.
really defensive.
Yeah.
And well, we talked and we did some things and we did finally a really good job with the team. But when we spoke to the manager later on, he said, really, because the guy said, we don't have good systems, our computers are old, they don't work hard, or they don't work good. And the manager said later on to us, well, really, if these 50 guys aren't there tomorrow anymore, nobody will notice.
Really?
So this whole team had a script of don't be. And
Really?
everybody who was put in this team had his personal script on don't be and
Really?
don't belong.
So nobody noticed them.
Nobody noticed they weren't important.
Right.
Not at all. So
That's
they were
fascinating.
all.
So you can have pockets within a larger, because you're talking about obviously this enormous organization, governmental body.
Yeah.
And you can have pockets within an organization with very different scripts then, I'd imagine.
Yes. And it's all
Fascinating.
interlocking.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So how did you first get into the world of organizations then and teams? What led to your career going in that direction?
Well, I told you about this guy who said, come and look with this team.
And this was just after you qualified in NLP?
Yes, yes.
And what were you doing before that?
I was a marketing product manager.
Oh, okay. So you were in organizations already?
Yeah.
So you understood the world of organizations. Okay.
Yeah, very good. And there also, in Holland, 50 years ago, we had a new law about illness and people who are ill, and we have to fill a lot of forms, and there was a lot of insurance companies involved. And I formed a new team about this and created new products on this.
Yeah.
And it was very great to build a team on a complete new subject.
Right. Okay. So that was how you got into the world of organizations and then you were invited to be a consultant and other work like that.
Yeah. I can talk the language of organizations.
Great.
Cor, I'm going to ask you a sticky question.
I love it.
Now that you have all of the experience that you have and are able to reflect back on all of your years of working in organizations, when you look back at you forming this new team for this new product range, what would you have done differently with all of the knowledge you have now?
Everything.
Yeah. That's funny.
Now, maybe I can bring a little bridge on my article about teams.
Yeah.
Because I wrote an article about teams using the work of Pamela Levin. And she wrote a great article about the cycle of living and the cycle of development. And working on this, I found out, stimulated by Martin Kouwenhoven, that the whole process of development of children is the same as development in a team. And for me, being the face of the stage being is for our people a really big one, but it's also for teams very, very, very important. And in the first stage of being in a team, everybody should be welcomed. Everybody should know that she's important. You have to give them a computer, a telephone, and so all the stuff, and say, you're welcome. Glad you are here.
Right.
And I think that's the main part I forgot.
Interesting. So that part of the cycle, it's about being. So that would be like welcoming a child into the world.
Yes.
Meeting the child's needs, allowing the child.
Yeah. Unconditional.
Interesting.
And in teams, it has to be also unconditional.
So in forming a new team, that first phase is a really important part.
Yeah. Especially since I wrote the article, I also found out that when there's a new team member, the team is going back to the being stage.
Okay.
But most of the time, the team and the manager is forgetting this. So they're saying to the new guy, oh, we're already here. Come on.
Gotcha. But this actually, as a whole, it's a completely new team because it's got a new member.
Yeah. And all the contracting, all the strokes, all the different parts have to be set again.
I guess that'd create an awful lot of, I guess in some ways, a lot of work, which in the early stages might seem like too much, possibly.
Yeah, and people forget it and say it takes too much time.
Right.
But when you do the work at the beginning, it all flows in the later stage of the team.
And allows the team to then be effective at doing the work, the
Yes.
reason why they're together. And before we started recording, you were saying you're writing a book as well. Tell us a little bit about what that's about. Does that fit into the stuff we've already been talking about?
It's about the model of the cycle of team development.
Okay.
So working out my article, but I get a lot of more space to dig in very deep into kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So I talk a lot more about Bion. And for example, in the stage doing, it's very important for the team to explore, to investigate, to create new ways to do things.
Mm.
And then I use the work of Igor Biterbyte. He's a very creative person. And he talked about the importance of the divergence and convergence. So to create more space and then bring it up together and how you can do that. So I can work in my book.
Divergence and convergence, is that?
Yeah, that's
right.
that's
okay,
one.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
I had a
Go on.
question, Matt, around, because I know you asked the difference earlier, Matt, between groups and teams.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, what's the difference between group and team development? Or do you see a difference, Cor?
I love it. I love your question, Joel. Well, I think for me, team development should also lead to make a contribution to the goal of the team. And group development can only be to be a group together.
Right.
So I work with some teams who say we're only a group together and we don't have a clear goal for us all. And then I work a lot with strokes to each other and let the group be a good place to be and to rest from the work or to reflect or to give supervision or to give feedback, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And I also do it with teams, but then building up to make a contribution to the task of the team.
There you go.
Yeah, that seems really clear in my mind now, because I have been very confused up till this point, not in this session, but just in generally in life, about where you put the boundaries between team and goal, team and group. But there is a real clear distinction, isn't it, about it's a group of people all working towards a goal when it's a team, whereas a group can all be immersed in different tasks. But I like what you said around working with strokes. Like, I've never thought about that, about they might be working out in different ways in the organization, but actually when they come together, they still need to be able to work together to give feedback. Or I really like what you said about a place to rest and refresh. I mean, how often does that happen in organizations,
Not that much. And I don't know how it is in England and Ireland, but in Holland, we're not that kind of good in stroking. We're very good at feedback, sharp feedback, but give really strokes and receive strokes is also very different for us Hollands.
I think, to be honest, I'm not part of a big organization. I have a friend who's written a book recently on feedback, and he would suggest that actually in the UK, we're not great at giving and receiving feedback, partly because we don't clearly communicate well, or feedback is seen as something more akin to criticism or just a way of getting you to be more effective rather than actually a way of communicating or opening up the dialogue, which I'd imagine if the strokes are done well and intelligently, then that would make a big difference.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. And it's also when we look again at the model of Pamela Levin, when you come at the stage of thinking, the third stage, there is feedback really important. And that's the stage where team members have to learn to give feedback and receive feedback.
Right.
And not only stroking, but really critical feedback. For most people, I found out, and for me also, to give that kind of clear feedback that is not being attacking, but only on the content.
Yes.
So set up your adult is really important in this, and being neutral in your tone of voice, being neutral in your face, and then the message can be received.
So it's about information. Like you were saying, having that safety within the group, people having the capacity to be an adult, inviting people to be an adult.
Yeah.
So that would be a lot around the team leadership as well then, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I hear you say about safety. My sponsor, Anne de Graaf, wrote an article about that we in TA do too much about safety.
Interesting.
He is saying so people only learn when it's not too safe.
Okay.
And when you combine it with Anthony Robbins, and Anthony Robbins, the NLP guru, says no gain without pain.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, discomfort is part of the process of growth.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
There's a risk in that then as well, though, isn't there? That like we go too far with that, because that's where this culture of I'm going to give you lots of constructive feedback, so it's like, how do you keep it in the middle of the two? There is like a sweet spot there, isn't there, where it's not too nicey marshmallow, everything's lovely here,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
it's not too harsh either.
I think you really got a good point, John, because I think when I explain the time structuring, I always use two arrows, and one arrow of safety, just when you withdraw, that is very safe, and intimacy is not very safe.
Yeah.
And the line of intimacy, so when you are intimate is very intimacy, but when you withdraw, there is no intimacy at all.
Right.
And then when you do the time structuring, each one of us had to find out what's for me the perfect balance in this. And then when you talk about it as a team, you can do contracting, how we do this together.
Yes. So the contracting part is really important. So you understand what people's proclivities are and their capacity to be able to receive the feedback, give feedback, stay an adult. And I guess what you were saying as well about that element of being when a new member joins, that everybody has that space to experience being part of the group, which then later would lead to or facilitate the feedback process being smoother. Yeah.
Yes.
One of the questions that John and I always ask our guests, and this would be really interesting to ask you, because you said that you teach in a university which teaches TA, but we always ask our guests, why do you think TA is not better known generally by the public? Now, it may be that you think it is, but our experience is that most of our friends, when we tell them about transaction analysis, most of them haven't heard of it at all. But what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I love the question. I have some few answers. And the first answer, I think for a part, is in the script of Eric Berne.
Okay.
Because he wrote a lot of books, but he was also a person not to shout out loud, this is me and this is the world and this is what I think. So maybe there's a don't be successful driver of a stopper for him.
So we're talking about the script of the founder again.
Yeah. I think that's one part. Second part is that I think TA is, for me, too much in the line of therapy as an institute on the PR part, in the exposure part.
Okay.
So most people, when they know a little bit about TA, they only can say about ego states and it's therapy.
Yeah.
And so much more. When you think of the eco part of Giles Barrow and the educational part, really great. A lot we wrote in organizational stuff. It's really great.
Yeah.
When I tell people about TA, I usually say, so we have a lot of 30 basic concepts. We have 300 concepts, basic, and we have 20,000 sub-concepts.
Yeah. There's a lot of material in there, isn't there?
Yeah, it's great. So, but they look at me if I'm mad. But I think that we don't exposure it too much because most of us like our jobs. And we don't like to go on a stage and tell more about it. It's really strange there isn't a TEDx talk about TA.
I know.
Yeah.
There should be one. And the other thing I think, Cor, because I really like what you're saying here, the other thing I think is really important is, because you picked up on it there about it being about therapy, we only ever seem to talk about TA as something that's applied. It's like it's therapy, it's OD, it's education, it's counseling. And actually, before it's any of those things, it's a body of social psychology. And I don't think we promote it as such enough. That is the top layer. And we have a really valuable contribution to offer to the wider sociological and psychological community. But because we get so entrapped in the pathway to accreditation Are you going to be
Yeah.
a counselor? Are you going to be a consultant? Are you going to be a psychotherapist? We forget about what we're building here all the time and all of the wonderful information and insights that are there. So I think for me, when anyone asks me, because in Ireland, transactional analysis isn't very well known. So when somebody says, what is TA? I say it's a social psychology. That's
Great.
all you need to know for now. I think.
It's great. And one of my colleagues in Holland teaches TA as positive psychology.
Yeah.
So, and it is.
Yeah.
It is. And I think so we have to do a lot about PR and getting outside. And I find it shameful to say that we have a very high standard on quality, but don't talk in the outworld about our standard. Maybe we say it's hard working and you do a few years about it to get it, but we don't say it's a very high standard. You don't become a CTA for nothing. You have to do something for it.
Yeah, I agree. I've come across a number of people. I'm training in psychotherapy, or have been doing for a few years now. And I've also recently started training in org and ed as well, because I love TA. But I discovered that the training for psychotherapy is a good chunk longer than most other schools that I'm aware of in other forms of psychotherapy. I had no idea when I signed up. But the training is rigorous. It's very thorough. And yet we don't shout about it. And it's actually one of the reasons why me and John wanted to do the podcast in some way, because we're really passionate and feel like it's got so much to offer the world in terms of the knowledge and insights.
I agree. So I really love you doing this. It's great. It's a new way to communicate.
Yeah. I was really interested in what you said, Cor, about the TA community as a whole not speaking out. Like, why is there not a TED Talk? Why are we not on the radio giving commentary on social issues? I feel like we have so much to offer, and not necessarily being directive, saying we think you should do this or this, but adding a commentary, giving thoughts, feelings, observations on things.
Yeah.
And this is something that comes up a lot, even in these episodes. We recently had an episode with Leonard Campus, and he talked about his frustration of the TA community not reaching out to other professionals. You know, and we keep meeting people. And now I'm going, why is everybody talking about the fact that we're all frustrated that we're not doing it? Like, it needs to no longer be an observation that it's not happening, because we've had enough insights and observations now that we're not good at doing these things. Now is the time for action.
Great.
John sounds like a politician for TA now, doesn't he?
We need one.
I've talked to Matt about this. I have this image of the TA community standing in a circle, with Eric Byrne in the middle. We're all looking at him, and we're all have our arms around each other, interlinked, and it's like we're a closed circle. And I feel like what we need to do is we need to turn out to the world. We need to turn out to the world and start looking at others and inviting others in. And we can't have our arms interlinked anymore, because this shouldn't be a closed group. It should be accessible to everybody. So I don't know how to make that happen. But like Matt said, the podcast is a beginning, hopefully.
Yeah.
We have to start it all over. And for me, it's when you say this, it's so a shame, because Byrne just talk about the boundaries and making the boundaries with a lot of space so that people can come in and come out. You don't know the model of the boundaries? The public structure and the private structure?
Yes, I do. Yeah. I do. And the apparatus and that. But I didn't know that he was talking about TA as a whole and what was going on there.
Yeah, also. So I think we have to do some work around it.
Yeah.
And I think we have some stuff going out in refining our identity as TA community.
Yeah.
And I think now's the time. I think we have the identification. Now's the time to come out.
Yeah.
And talk to other people, make connections.
So this is what really interested me. We've had a couple of guests on who, when we've asked them that question, they've said, well, we need to get more integrated into the universities, like other fields or other theories have integrated, and there's research being done on these particular theories in the universities by academics. And I think Richard Erskine mentioned that he worked with a load of academics early stages, but who wanted to teach it at universities, but then they weren't allowed to because they didn't have the qualifications to. And all that kind of stuff. And I think Leonard Campos said that we need to get more integrated into the academic system. And you are. So tell us more about that. The university that you're part of, how did TA become integrated there? And what's your role in that university with TA?
Yeah, I was being asked, but I have some colleagues who've done great job over there.
Yeah.
Margaret Sleeuwenhoek is one of these, and she was in some way connected to the business part-time MSc, and she introduced TA over there.
Right.
And now she's working in a lot of parts of the business, but it's also a business university, yeah? So maybe that's different.
Okay. Yeah.
So there is TA a big part. When there is a little bit about personal development,
Yeah.
Nairobi chooses for doing this with TA.
Right. Okay. So it's all about the organizational stuff.
And we have also other universities, and we have kind of the same problem as you have.
Yeah.
Not enough professors, not enough improvement, not enough investigations, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's very strange because when you walk around in that kind of university and talk about of other theories, I think they're not as good as they say they are, investigated and inquired. So
yeah.
But it's also about the same thing. We don't mention it enough. We don't go enough to university and say, let's work together. Let's find out together.
Yeah.
And I think that's a part for us to do.
Yeah. The collaboration.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. That's a nice invitation to any of the TA professionals who are listening.
I think so too.
TA world.
And for us too.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's great. Okay. Love it. One of the things we also ask is, what do you think are the myths around TA? Because we want to kind of burst some of those bubbles, the myths developed around TA. What do you think those might be, if any?
One of the myths is it's only ego states, it's therapy, it's old-fashioned, it's old school, it's the 70s, no depth enough. So
quite a few there. Yeah, all of them not true. Yeah. And so in terms of your own personal journey, you say you've been in the world of TA for 50 years now.
Yes.
What
15.
have you seen change, the most significant shifts in the world of TA in those years?
I think Mark Widdowson did a great job on the importance of investigation and scientific research.
Yeah,
research. So that's a great part, I think. For me, there is a lot of development on the organizational part and the educational part. I think they are alive and kicking.
Yeah.
And I think in Holland, we can see a shift. So we have a team, I think 10, 50 years ago, we had maybe 10 PTSTA, TSTA, and now we have almost 30. So it's growing. We have more trainers and supervisors.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of more energy around it and a lot of more drive together.
Fantastic.
And in Holland, we are working on be a better professional together.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of things on rules about privacy and this kinds of stuff, and working with an external party when there are complaints. So I think we are growing as being a professional.
Okay. So it's not just in numbers, it's in your approach, professionalism.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what I see, but maybe it's because I'm growing in the world of TA, I see there are a lot of more international connections. So I can see we do a lot of in Ukraine and that kind of countries.
Yeah.
And I can see working together, the Burn Institute with the TA Academy in Holland.
Yeah.
So I think we're growing to each other. And I love that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've noticed since the lockdown began is the number of seminars that I've attended with people from all over the globe. It's been wonderful. And the fact that the world has opened up through Zoom, and all these integrations and connections that are happening, that has been one of the real benefits, the side effects of the lockdown. So that more integrated TA world.
Yeah.
So, Cor, can you tell us a little bit about any exciting projects that you're working on at the moment?
Yeah, I can tell you about a few.
Your book?
Beside my book, yes.
Yeah.
I've published a game in working on the hero's journey.
Okay.
Do you know the hero's journey?
I love. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, and in the hero's journey there are 12 stages.
Yeah.
And I translated to DNA of change in organizations and with people. And we have 36 cards.
Yeah.
And each step of the 12 is in the normal step of the hero's journey.
So this is like a board game?
No. I will show it to you.
Yeah.
People can't show, but it's...
So we'll describe...
We talked about jobs.
So it's like a pack of cards.
A pack of cards, so...
Well-known
We have a lot, so do you know this guy?
Rocky Balboa.
Rocky.
Karate Kid. Okay. So well-known movie characters and characters.
Yeah, and then you can pick a card about a person.
Yeah. Okay.
And then on the other side is this
quote.
Quote.
Yeah. So
can
Steve Jobs, the ones who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones who do. Love it.
And what do you do then with this in a team, Cor? How do you facilitate the game?
I use them for several parts, so you can use it by tell who you are at the beginning of a training.
Yeah.
And pick a card and tell about it. But I also use it when they have a problem in the team and everybody picks a card who's connect with his idea of what the problem is.
I love that.
And then with combination of the quote and the card, they have tools to talk about it.
Okay, that's so you're facilitating conversation about difficult or challenging feedback.
Because I've done that before with picture cards. You know, I'm sure we all have at some point. But there can be an erupting volcano, or there can be a picture of a Buddha. You know, whatever you. But I really like this, because in business sometimes people don't like that. It's a bit too far. Yeah, exactly. It's a bit too soft. Yeah. Whereas I can see people really like picking a card of Rocky or Steve Jobs and really relating to it and feeling like they emulate that person in their role. I think it's very clever. I like it a lot.
And how does that integrate with the Jungian archetypes that you were talking about? You said
that's the next part. It was my first game.
Yeah.
And I'm now working with my second game, and it's about Jung and his archetypes. So, and archetypes are the universal picture of some part of us. Everybody has a mother or a father in himself, a knight or a host. Yeah. And I picked from his books and other books about archetypes, about 80 archetypes. And we're now making this kind of pictures on 80 archetypes in movies with a description of the bright side and the shadow side of the archetypes.
Very cool. I know very little about Jung except for anima and animus. Are these two of the archetypes, or is that just...
No, anima and animus is other thinking about combining those two in yourself. Mm-hmm. And he translated it to archetypes. So every archetype has also a female and a male space of piece of it.
Cool.
So I'm going to ask you then, where can people get hold of information on your games? We're doing a push for your games now. So, plug.
Yeah, thank you.
Where can we find out more about you? Do you have a website?
I have a website, Atta Inspireert. So it's inspiration in Dutch.
Okay. We'll put that on the show notes then.
Yeah. Great. I love it.
Excellent. And they can find out about your games on there, can they?
Yeah, they can.
Do you publish them in different languages, Cor? I know the ones there were in English.
This is only in English on the backside.
Okay.
And I have a little book with it, but I have to translate it in English also. So it's a product for next year.
Yeah. Work in progress. Brilliant.
Yes.
Good.
Nice.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time and for your wisdom and insight. And I look forward to actually have a look at your website. More information on those games. They look fantastic. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I think you've done a great job on this, of doing a great job on this.
Thank you.
Thanks.
As always, if you found anything in today's episode interesting, please feel free to reach out. You can visit our website, which has lots of information and TA resources, transactionalanalysispodcast.com. You can connect with us on all major platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And you can email us at 3peopleinyourhead@gmail.com using the number 3 rather than the word. If you haven't already, please follow us on Apple Podcast and Spotify. And we'd be really grateful if you could leave us a review. Thanks for listening.